Welcome to the untamed depths, where the forest holds secrets that only come alive when the sun sinks below the horizon. By day, the woods may feel calm, even familiar the rustle of leaves, the chatter of birds, the dappled sunlight weaving its way through branches. But when night falls, everything changes. Shadows stretch longer, the air grows cooler, and 1,000 unseen lives begin to stir. This is not the forest you walk through in daylight. At night, the wilderness transforms into something older, stranger, and filled with mystery. Creatures you rarely see emerge from hiding. Owls glide silently between trees. Deer step softly through the undergrowth, and small eyes glimmer from the brush, reflecting the faint light of the moon. To walk through it would be to step into another world, one where every sound is sharper, every movement carries weight, and the ordinary becomes almost otherworldly. For centuries, humans have told stories about the forest at night, tales of spirits, wandering lights, and voices that drift between the trees. Some of these stories were born from fear, others from awe, but all were attempts to explain the strange energy that lingers in the darkness. In this documentary, we'll wander together through those midnight woods. We'll listen to the calls of animals that own the night, uncover the natural rhythms that govern these hidden hours, and trace the myths and legends that humans created to make sense of what they could not see. So settle in, let your mind wander with the forest breeze, and allow the night to guide you. The journey into the unknown begins here. The forest changes the moment the sun begins to sink behind the distant treetops. The last light of day fades slowly, as if the sky itself is reluctant to release its hold on the emerald expanse beneath it. Shadows stretch long across the forest floor, creeping into places that had, only moments ago, been bathed in gold. The air seems to hold its breath. Leaves glimmer faintly with the memory of the sun, then darken into deeper shades of green and black. The chorus of daytime voices, bright birds, busy insects, and chattering monkeys begins to dim, like an orchestra winding down after a long performance. A hush spreads across the canopy, not complete silence, but a moment of hesitation, as if the entire forest pauses in unison, aware of what is to come. For those who walk within this world, dusk is not simply the ending of the day. It is the threshold of another realm. The forest after sunset is not the same as the forest before. The pathways vanish into shadows, the trees take on new shapes, and the air itself grows heavier, richer with scents carried in the cooling breeze. The temperature drops, and with it comes a rising mist that clings to the roots and vines, curling low to the ground like a ghostly veil. It is a place transformed, a place where every sense must adjust, where the human eye struggles to keep pace with the swift descent of night. The first signs of transformation are subtle. A single bird calls out its last note of the evening, the sound lingering like a farewell. Another answers faintly, distant and tired. Then, for a heartbeat, silence, but it does not last. The first creaks and croaks begin, frogs testing their voices, insects striking their rhythmic notes, as if preparing for a concert that will last until dawn. The forest is never truly silent, but when night arrives, its music shifts entirely. The melodies of day, sharp and sunlit, give way to deeper tones, resonant and mysterious, filling every space with sound that seems to rise from the earth itself. In the canopy above, life rearranges itself. Birds that flew restlessly all day find their perches, tucking their heads beneath their wings, seeking stillness for the long night ahead. Bats replace them in the open air, unfolding their wings like fragile sheets of leather, launching themselves into the dimming sky with silent grace. Their shapes cut across the last glimmers of twilight, fluttering erratically, but with precision that no human eye can truly follow. To watch them is to see shadows dancing with shadows, vanishing into the folds of darkness before one has time to count their number. On the ground, other creatures begin to stir. Rodents creep from their burrows, cautious but eager, sniffing at the soil that still carries the warmth of the day. Small predators, sleek and patient, step lightly through the undergrowth, their eyes glimmering with reflected starlight. Where the trees, thin and streams cut through the earth, the first calls of nightjars echo, strange and haunting cries that drift like echoes of unseen voices. The forest is no longer a place of clear sight. It becomes a place of sound and scent, of intuition rather than certainty. The senses shift, adapting to the new order of things. The silence that spread at sunset was only an illusion, a pause before the awakening. For night does not bring rest to the forest. It brings a second life, one just as vibrant, just as filled with movement and mystery as the day, though cloaked in secrecy. Insects are the first to rise in force. Their bodies shimmer faintly in the moonlight, tiny wings beating against the still air. Clouds of them swirl in restless motion, feeding, mating, searching. Their droning hum becomes the very fabric of the night, a constant vibration that threads through every corner of the jungle. To stand among them is to feel surrounded by an invisible current, a low tide of movement and sound that never ceases. Above them, hidden in the canopy, owls take their places. Their round eyes, vast and unblinking, pierce through the darkness with an ease that humans can never know. They sit in silence, statues carved into the branches, waiting for the faintest rustle below to betray the movement of prey. Their wings, when they finally spread, make no sound. They fall from the branches like shadows made flesh, gliding silently through the black air. When they strike, it is swift, merciless, unseen by all but the unfortunate creature caught within their talons. The forest after sunset belongs to such hunters, those who thrive on silence and secrecy. Jaguars, masters of stealth, emerge from the shadows of the underbrush. Their steps are so soft they leave no trace, their bodies moving with the rhythm of the night itself. To see one is rare, for they prefer to remain unseen, their spotted coats blending perfectly with the shifting patterns of moonlight and foliage. Yet their presence is always felt. The forest seems to grow tense in the places they wander, the air charged with an awareness that something powerful is near. Small animals freeze at the faintest hint of movement, their survival dependent on silence and stillness. But the forest is not ruled by predators alone. Countless tiny lives unfold in the safety of darkness. Frogs, cloaked in colors that seem almost too vivid for daylight, climb out of damp hollows to call to one another. Their songs form an endless chorus, each note overlapping with another until the sound becomes a rolling wave that surges through the night. Fireflies answer with light instead of sound, blinking in and out like sparks carried on the wind, their small lanterns floating in patterns no human could decipher. Together, sound and light weave the fabric of the nocturnal world, creating a spectacle meant not for human eyes, but for those born to the rhythms of the jungle. A river, too, transforms with the setting sun. Its waters darken until they reflect only the faint glimmers of moon and star. Fish that spent the day hidden in the shallows emerge, their scales flashing briefly when they break the surface. Caimans glide silently along the edges, their eyes glowing red in the half-light, watching, waiting. On the banks, capybaras shuffle cautiously, venturing out to graze in the relative safety of numbers. The river becomes a mirror of the night, holding within it both life and danger, its still surface betraying nothing of the restless activity below. As the night deepens, the forest feels both infinite and enclosed. The canopy stretches above like a ceiling of woven black, blotting out most of the stars, allowing only fragments of the sky to appear. The ground seems farther away, hidden beneath roots and leaves, while the air grows thick, filled with scents that sharpen as the temperature cools. Flowers release their perfumes at night, rich and intoxicating, designed to lure the moths and bats that will carry their pollen. To walk through this world is to breathe in a blend of sweetness and decay, life and death entwined as one. Time moves differently here. Without the light of day to guide it, the hours of night blend seamlessly into one another. The forest becomes a realm outside of clocks, measured instead by the ebb and flow of sound, by the waxing and waning of the moon. For those who dwell here, whether man or beast, this rhythm is ancient, older than memory, older than the very trees themselves. It is a rhythm that speaks of survival, of adaptation, of the endless dance between predator and prey, between darkness and the faint promise of light to come. For the human wandering through the forest after sunset, there is both fear and wonder. Every rustle, every distant call, every flicker of light among the trees carries a weight of mystery. The senses strain, searching for meaning in the unfamiliar, for safety in a place where none is certain. Yet in that uncertainty lies the true essence of the night. It is not meant to be fully known. It is meant to be felt, to be experienced as a whole, a vast and living tapestry where every thread vibrates with life. The forest after sunset is alive in ways the day cannot reveal. It is a world that exists parallel to the one we know, hidden in plain sight, waiting only for the turning of the sun to open its gates. In its shadows dwell creatures seen and unseen, voices heard and unheard, all part of a cycle as ancient as the earth itself. To step into it is to surrender to mystery, to accept that the forest holds truths beyond our grasp. And in that surrender, one finds not only fear, but awe, a quiet recognition that life does not sleep here. It simply shifts, transforms, and continues endlessly beneath the cloak of night. When the last glow of sunlight drains from the forest canopy, and the heavy curtain of dusk has drawn itself across the sky, a quiet stillness settles over the land. Yet this stillness is not the silence of absence, but the pregnant pause of anticipation. Beneath the canopy, where shadows pool like ink between the roots and the branches, the forest is waiting. For though the day dwellers retreat into their nests, burrows, and hidden places, the night belongs to others. It is their time now, their realm. The first stirrings of the nightlife begin gently, almost tentatively, as if the forest itself is uncertain whether to surrender fully to the dark. Small lives awaken, testing the edges of the shadow, dipping into the pools of silence with quiet movements. They are the harbingers of night, the messengers that whisper, "The world has changed, and new rulers are rising." The very first of these is often the mouse. In the forest, rodents are many and varied tiny brown-furred creatures that scurry through the undergrowth, whiskers twitching as they nose through the leaf litter for seeds and fallen fruit. To a daytime wanderer, the mouse would seem insignificant, barely noticed among the grand trees and the cries of the birds. But at night, in the dim hours, the mouse becomes bold. Freed from the blazing eye of the sun and the swooping talons of hawks, it emerges into the open ground, darting in nervous zigzags between roots and stones. Its ears, wide and rounded, quiver at the faintest rustle, tuned finely to the vibrations of danger. Its paws pad lightly, making almost no sound at all, as though it has learned to walk on the air itself. And with each seed found, each nut cracked open, each morsel stored away in its cheek pouches, the mouse begins the nightly rhythm of survival. It is the quiet pulse at the heart of the nocturnal tide. Above them, the owls stir. Their golden eyes, unblinking and unclouded, snap open as though the dusk itself has ignited them. These are the great watchers of the forest night. From their perches on twisted branches, their round heads swivel with an eerie smoothness, taking in every detail, every flicker of movement far below. Their feathers, soft and fringed like velvet, allow them to slip through the air with a silence that borders on the supernatural. The mouse cannot hear them coming. No creature can. For when the owl chooses its moment, its wings spread wide, and it drops soundlessly into the undergrowth, talons outstretched, seizing its prize in a rush that is almost always unseen. It is said that to witness the flight of an owl in moonlight is to watch the forest itself move, a shadow within shadows. Where the rodent stirs, the owl responds. And this delicate dance of hunter and hunted has been playing out since time beyond memory. As the forest deepens into night, another figure joins the cast. Bats, like restless souls released from hidden crypts, pour forth into the skies. From caves, hollowed trees, and cracks within ancient stone, they emerge in dark clouds, wheeling and darting in dizzying arcs. At first, only a few flicker across the sky, their wings cutting swift silhouettes against the fading twilight. But soon, their numbers swell, until it seems the stars themselves have come alive and taken flight. Bats are strange masters of the night, living between silence and sound, between shadow and movement. Their world is one of echo's tiny cries too high for the human ear to perceive, bouncing invisibly from leaves, from insects, from the stillness of the air itself. In this way, they map the night, painting the unseen with sound, threading through branches in dizzying speed without ever colliding. Insects, rising now in their millions, are the feast, and the bats are the tireless hunters. A single bat may consume thousands of mosquitoes in the span of one night, weaving its silent net through the dark skies until the dawn recalls it back to its resting hollow. For the insects, the night is a different call. As the darkness deepens, they grow bold in their numbers. Moths, pale-winged and dusted in delicate scales, flutter up from hidden perches and gather around any glimmer of light, whether the faint glow of moonbeams caught on water, or, in distant clearings, the flicker of human fire. Their wings move in erratic dances, as if they are searching for a secret only the night can provide. Crickets rub their wings together, their song rising and falling in an endless chorus that fills the silence like waves upon an unseen shore. Cicadas add their shrill tones, the rhythm of their calls vibrating through the branches, resonating deep in the chest of the forest. These are the voices of night's arrival, the background music upon which all other movements play. Without them, the forest would be emptier, less alive, less mysterious. The interplay between these creatures is delicate, and yet it is never static. A mouse may stir, but an owl waits. A moth may flutter, but a bat closes in. A cricket may sing, but a predator moves through the grass, silencing it with a single swift strike. This is the fabric of the forest at night, a world where every sound carries meaning, every shadow hides a possibility, every small stirring ripples outward into the larger web of life. And while the great predators, jaguars, ocelots, caimans may rule with force and ferocity, it is these first stirrings, these small awakenings of the mice, the owls, the bats, that set the stage. They are the first sparks in the great symphony of the night. The forest itself responds to them. As mice scurry through the leaves, snakes lying in wait sense the vibrations and prepare. As bats swoop in dizzying circles, spiders spin webs to catch what escapes their reach. As owls glide silently between branches, smaller birds hush their movements, drawing themselves tightly into the shadows of their nests, aware that any sound may give them away. Even the plants seem to shift. Certain blossoms unfurl only at night, their pale petals glowing faintly in the moonlight, releasing perfumes that call to moths and other pollinators. These subtle fragrances drift on the cool air, so sweet and sharp that one can almost taste them, luring creatures that will spread their pollen across the forest in exchange for a sip of nectar. Thus, even the flowers are awake, participating in the great nocturnal unfolding. It is easy, in the hush of twilight, to think of night as emptiness, as stillness, as silence. But here, in the forest, night is anything but empty. It is full overflowing with tiny lives that move, sound, hunt, and sing. Each one is small, often unseen, yet together they form a tide of energy that sustains the larger world. Without the mice, seeds would not spread as they do. Without the owls, their numbers would swell uncontrollably. Without the bats, insects might choke the skies in uncountable swarms. Without the insects themselves, pollination would falter, food chains would crumble, and the forest would wither. These humble stirrings, so easily overlooked by day, are in truth the foundation upon which the night is built. As the hours grow darker, their presence strengthens. The mice multiply their ventures into the open. The owls widen their circles of hunting. The bats swoop lower, faster, their echoes crisscrossing the air in frantic patterns. The crickets and cicadas reach the height of their song, weaving a chorus so constant it becomes a background hum, like the forest itself breathing. The first stirrings are no longer tentative. They are confident, insistent, alive. The night has claimed the forest, and it throbs with the energy of those who dare to move within its depths. In this way, the small creatures, timid, fleeting, easily overlooked, become the heralds of night. They emerge first, before the larger predators, before the truly fearsome dramas of the jungle unfold. They are the first sparks that ignite the living darkness, the pulse that wakes the heart of the forest. And for those who listen carefully, who stand quietly as the shadows deepen and the silence thickens, their presence is unmistakable. A rustle here, a chirp there, the faint whoosh of wings high overhead. Together, they whisper the same truth. The night has begun, and the forest is no longer what it was. When the last blush of twilight fades, and the night fully lays claim to the forest, one sound rises above the others, a call that chills, intrigues, and compels those who hear it. It is the voice of the owl, carried on cool currents of night air. Unlike the chorus of insects that buzz tirelessly, or the rhythmic croaks of frogs that rise and fall in waves, the call of the owl punctuates the silence like a secret being shared. Sometimes it is a long, drawn-out note, echoing across the canopy. At other times, it is a staccato rhythm, short bursts that suggest urgency or warning. For those wandering through the forest, these calls feel like riddles, as though the night itself is speaking in a language humans can only guess at but never fully translate. The language of owls is not just one of sound, it is layered with intent. An owl does not cry into the night for no reason. Each call is measured, purposeful, a note written in an ancient code of survival. A low hoot may be a territorial claim, a reminder to other owls that this patch of forest belongs to a sharp-eyed hunter who knows every shadow, every clearing. A higher, sharper note may be an invitation, a subtle beckoning to a mate. When two owls converse in the darkness, their voices overlap and weave into a duet that seems both eerie and intimate, a love song disguised as a haunting refrain. And when danger stirs, the tone shifts. The calls grow harsher, clipped, each one like a flare in the dark, warning others of a predator's movement. There is something otherworldly about how these calls resonate. Sound in the forest travels differently at night. The dense foliage and the still, humid air cradle each note, amplifying it, bending it, sending it further than it might travel during the day. An owl perched high on a branch, hidden by leaves, can be heard for miles, its message sweeping across valleys and over rivers. To the creatures of the forest, those notes are not decoration, but vital signals. To a mouse scurrying nervously across the forest floor, the faintest owl call is enough to freeze it in place, knowing that a moment's pause might mean life or death. To another owl listening from afar, the same note may be a challenge, a line drawn across the night sky. The beauty of this language lies in its ambiguity. For humans who listen, the sound stirs emotions, fear, wonder, loneliness, or awe. Many cultures have woven myths and stories around the calls of owls, believing them to be omens or messengers. In some traditions, the owl is a harbinger of death, its hoot a warning of things unseen and approaching. In others, the owl is a guide, a symbol of wisdom, whispering truths that only the stillness of night allows one to hear. Standing in the forest beneath a canopy heavy with stars, it is easy to understand why such beliefs took root. The owl's voice feels not entirely of this world, as though it belongs as much to spirits as to flesh and feathers. Yet, behind the mystery lies practicality. The owl's call is as much about survival as it is about mystique. Owls are silent hunters, their wings adapted to cut through the air without a sound, their eyes built for piercing the darkness. They rely on sound to communicate what their silence and flight cannot express. Their language, then, is one of necessity, defining boundaries, finding mates, signaling alarm. The nocturnal forest is a crowded stage, and the owl's voice is one of the clearest instruments in the orchestra, a steady reminder of presence in a world that thrives in shadows. As the hours stretch deeper into night, the rhythm of their calls shifts. Early on, when the first stirrings of nocturnal life are just beginning, an owl's voice may seem solitary, a lone echo breaking into the dusk. But as midnight approaches, the forest seems filled with them, overlapping notes that ripple across treetops and over clearings. Each call has its place, as though the owls themselves know the importance of timing, leaving spaces between their messages so that nothing is lost in the symphony of the dark. To sit quietly and listen is to feel as though the forest itself is speaking in waves, a language so ancient it humbles the heart. There is a rhythm to how other animals respond as well. A monkey, startled by a particularly sharp hoot, may stir uneasily in its nest of leaves. Insects shift their buzzing to a softer tone, as though aware of the predator overhead. Frogs pause, then resume, adjusting their croaks in ways that suggest they too hear and interpret the meaning behind each owl's voice. The entire ecosystem reacts, subtly and collectively, shaping its own behaviors around the cadence of the calls. To study it is to realize that the forest at night is not random chaos, but a carefully balanced dialogue in which each creature plays a part. Even silence becomes part of this language. When the calls stop suddenly, when the hoots and screeches vanish into stillness, that too is a message. Something has moved. A predator other than the owl may be near, or the owl itself may have launched into flight. The pause speaks louder than the sound, an unspoken warning that ripples outward. In these moments, the hush of the forest feels almost unbearable, pressing in on all sides until the balance is restored and the owl calls once more, breaking the tension with its haunting refrain. Listening long enough, one comes to realize that the owl's voice is not one sound, but many, a lexicon of tones, lengths, and rhythms, each carrying meaning known instinctively to those who share the forest. It is a reminder that communication in nature is rarely about words, but about patterns, timing, and context. The owl's language is not designed for us, yet it reaches us all the same, tapping into something primal and emotional. To hear it while standing beneath towering trees, the stars hidden by a ceiling of leaves, is to feel both small and included, a witness to conversations that stretch back thousands of years. And so the night deepens, the forest listening as much as it speaks. The owls continue their exchanges, some territorial, some tender, some filled with tension. Their voices define the shape of the night, marking the hours in ways no human clock could. They are both warnings and invitations, secrets and declarations, echoes of survival and whispers of mystery. To call it eerie is too simple, too human a word. It is something larger and ancient music that binds the forest together, one haunting note at a time. Shadows lengthen when the sun finally dips beyond the horizon, and the jungle exhales into stillness. It is not a silence of absence, but of transformation. The light that once dappled the canopy is gone, and in its place comes a softer illumination, one that belongs not to the day, but to the ancient realm of night. The moon, whether full and commanding or reduced to a thin silver arc, begins to guide the forest in its quiet glow. It filters through the canopy in fragments, breaking into scattered shards of pale light that strike the ground in strange shapes. These shapes stretch and sway with the trees, moving gently when a breeze whispers across the leaves. And it seems as if the forest itself has begun to breathe in rhythm with the moon. The ground looks unfamiliar beneath this faint illumination. Trails that were once familiar during the day appear twisted and elongated. Rocks and roots take on new forms, their edges sharpened by shadows that reach like fingers into the undergrowth. To walk through the jungle by moonlight is to enter a world of illusion, where every step feels like stepping into a dream half remembered. A clearing that once seemed open now feels closed, pressed in by shadows at the edges. A tree trunk that looked ordinary in the sunlight becomes a tall, watchful figure when cloaked in darkness. The transformation is so complete that even seasoned travelers hesitate, for night has always been a master of deception. Moonlight touches the leaves with silver, glazing their surfaces until they shimmer faintly, as though the forest has been brushed with frost. The veins of large jungle leaves catch this light, glowing faintly like networks of hidden rivers. Vines hang low, their tangled bodies casting looping silhouettes across the paths, twisting into shapes that seem almost alive. Every shadow suggests movement, and every patch of light appears fleeting, as if it might vanish when blinked at too long. The jungle floor, once earthy and solid beneath the gaze of the sun, becomes a shifting mosaic of black pools and glowing patches, an endless dance of light and dark. The moon itself does not stand still. It rises higher, changes position, and with it the forest changes too. Shadows that were long and narrow grow shorter and fatter, or disappear altogether when clouds slide across the sky. The canopy becomes a filter for the light, breaking it apart like a prism into scattered, trembling beams. These beams illuminate only fragments of the forest, leaving most of it shrouded in darkness. And so the eye learns to hunt for brightness, for something familiar in the gloom. A single flower may glow under the silver touch, its petals seeming brighter than in daylight. Dew on spiderwebs sparkles faintly, like a constellation strung between branches. And yet, only a few feet away, there is nothing but impenetrable shadow, a silence that feels heavier because of the light nearby. This interplay of brightness and obscurity stirs the imagination. Humans have long attached stories to the way shadows move under the moon. Myths speak of spirits wandering under the trees, slipping between beams of silver light. Travelers have often claimed to see figures just beyond their vision, their shapes retreating before they can be fully glimpsed. The jungle does not deny such stories. Instead, it encourages them with every flicker of shifting darkness. A rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, or the sudden hush of frogs and crickets. All of it takes on new meaning when combined with moonlight that hides as much as it reveals. The animals of the forest respond to this transformation in ways both subtle and profound. Some are emboldened by the dim light, leaving their hiding places to forage or hunt. Others remain still, knowing that to move now is to risk being seen by the sharp eyes of predators who are born to this twilight. Owls drift between the branches silently, their wings almost luminous as they pass through open shafts of moonlight. Their shadows trail across the forest floor like fleeting ghosts. Bats emerge in swirling groups, their bodies darting in and out of beams of silver as they chase insects drawn to the damp night air. Small rodents scurry at the edges of the light, skimming the boundaries between brightness and shadow, as though they understand instinctively that safety lies in remaining invisible. Predators, too, make use of the changing light. The jaguar, master of stealth, is cloaked in deeper darkness when the moon shifts behind clouds, and in pale brilliance when it reappears. To the human eye, this makes the cat almost unreal, its body phasing between invisibility and sudden clarity. It is said that some hunters in the jungle could not tell whether they had glimpsed a jaguar or the play of shadows until they heard the heavy silence break behind them. The moon's gift to such predators is not merely light, but the power to confuse, to disorient, to keep prey ever uncertain of where danger lies. As the night deepens, the moon climbs to its highest point. At this hour, the forest appears almost otherworldly. The leaves seem edged with silver fire, each blade glowing against the blackness behind it. Pools of water reflect the moon as perfect mirrors, and when stirred by a frog's leap or the sip of a thirsty animal, they fracture into shimmering rings of light. The air itself feels thicker, filled with the scent of damp earth and flowers that only open in the night. With every inhalation, it seems as though the forest is offering its breath to the stars, mingling the exhalations of countless living beings with the cool air drifting down from the heavens. Even the sounds are different in the glow of moonlight. Insects buzz and click, their rhythms rising and falling like waves, but softened by the way light dampens the sense of distance. A frog calls from the shadow of a pool, its voice echoing as if from a cavern. The distant hoot of an owl sounds closer, magnified by the silence around it. The moon is not only a source of light, but of presence. Its watchfulness seems to heighten every noise, to make every sound resonate through the branches. And yet, this same watchfulness offers reassurance, for the moon has always been a companion to the lonely traveler, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, there is light. There are nights when the moon is hidden, when clouds roll thick across the sky and obscure its glow. On such nights, the forest is plunged into near total darkness, and the world feels utterly different. The absence of moonlight is as striking as its presence. Without it, the shadows become solid, pressing close, and paths disappear entirely. Creatures accustomed to faint illumination retreat, waiting for the sky to clear. For humans, such nights are disorienting, as though the forest has decided to erase its shapes and hold its secrets more tightly. When the clouds part and the moon returns, it feels like a revelation, as though the forest itself has taken a deep breath and relaxed again. The rhythm of shadows and moonlight is timeless. For millennia, animals and humans alike have lived by its cycles, adapting their behavior to the changing phases of the moon. A full moon brings brightness that can turn night into something resembling day, while a new moon erases nearly every trace of light, leaving only the glow of fireflies and the faint glimmer of stars beyond the canopy. Each phase tells the forest something different. Each phase alters the balance between hunter and hunted, between safety and exposure, between illusion and clarity. To stand in the jungle during these hours is to be reminded of the fragility of perception. The same path, the same tree, the same clearing can seem utterly transformed depending on how the moon strikes it. In daylight, the forest reveals its abundance openly, its colors, textures, and movements vibrant and familiar. By night, under silver beams and sprawling shadows, it becomes secretive, a place where certainty slips away and imagination fills the gaps. The forest has not changed. It is the light that has, and with it the human sense of reality. And so the dance continues, night after night, across generations. The moon rises and falls, shadows stretch and collapse, and the forest reshapes itself endlessly beneath their shifting embrace. What remains constant is the sense of awe, the awareness that even in a world of science and explanation, the interplay of light and darkness still carries mystery. For those who walk beneath the canopy guided by silver and shadow, the lesson is the same as it has always been. The forest at night is not merely seen, it is experienced, felt, and remembered long after the dawn returns. The forest at night becomes a stage for shadows, and at the center of this stage move the predators. Their steps are light, their forms are often hidden, and yet their presence is constant, woven into the very silence. As the last traces of daylight fade, foxes emerge from their dens. Wolves drift like gray phantoms between the trees, and wildcats trace invisible routes known only to them. The world of night is theirs, shaped by instinct, sharpened senses, and the quiet patience that comes with the hunt. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound becomes a thread in their web of awareness. They are not rushed, for time moves differently in the darkness. For these creatures, the hours of night are not dangerous. They are a gift. A fox is often the first predator one might glimpse, darting quickly along the forest's edge. With its keen nose and sharp ears, It can detect the faintest movement of a mouse tunneling under leaves, or the hurried steps of a rabbit trying to find safety. The fox's body is small compared to wolves or cats, yet it thrives on cunning rather than strength. Its paws press gently on the ground, barely making a sound, as if it floats just above the soil. A flash of red fur under the moonlight, a glint of eyeshine reflecting back from a torchlight. These are often the only signs of its passage. To watch a fox is to see a creature perfectly balanced between stealth and agility. A reminder that the smallest predators are often the most adaptable. Deeper in the woods, where the shadows grow heavier, wolves begin their nightly movements. Unlike foxes, they do not travel alone. The forest carries the rhythm of their steps, a coordinated pulse of multiple bodies moving as one. Wolves are both silent and loud. Their padded feet make almost no noise as they trot, yet their howls can ripple across miles, stitching together the night with sound. These calls are more than hunting songs. They are declarations of territory, reassurance to pack members, and sometimes a warning to rivals. To stand in a dark forest and hear the long rising cry of a wolf is to feel the immense weight of presence, to be reminded that the night is shared with powerful beings who see the land differently. Their golden eyes pierce through the dim, catching the slightest gleam of moonlight, and in their wake lies a silence that feels heavier, as though the forest itself pauses to listen. Wildcats, unlike wolves, are solitary, slipping unnoticed between the trunks of trees. They are shadows within shadows, lean figures that move with deliberate precision. A wildcat crouches low, blending into the undergrowth so completely that even trained eyes might miss it. Its whiskers twitch, sensing vibrations in the air, while its muscles coil like springs ready to unleash. Unlike wolves, who thrive in cooperation, the wildcat survives on patience and explosive strength. It may wait for long minutes in complete stillness until the perfect moment arrives. A rustle, a movement, a chance. Then, in one blur of motion, it strikes, leaving no time for its prey to react. This suddenness, this mastery of the ambush, makes the wildcat one of the forest's most efficient predators. To know it is, there is often only to notice what disappears, for the wildcat rarely leaves traces of its passage. Each of these predators, different in size and method, is united by their role as keepers of balance. Without them, populations of smaller creatures would swell uncontrollably, and the harmony of the ecosystem would falter. The fox prevents rodents from overwhelming the forest floor. The wolf manages the numbers of deer and elk, and the wildcat controls the movements of rabbits and birds. They are hunters, but they are also guardians, ensuring that the intricate web of life does not unravel. When they move, they do not disturb for the sake of disturbance. They act with purpose, guided by survival and instinct. Their silence is not emptiness, but intention, and their presence shapes the night more than any visible sign. The moonlight, when it filters through the canopy, sometimes reveals these predators in fleeting glimpses. A wolf's shadow stretches across a clearing, then melts back into the trees. A fox pauses, ears pricked, its breath steaming faintly in the cool air. A wildcat passes silently, leaving behind only the faint impression of paw prints in soft earth. For those who have seen them, even once, the memory lingers like a dream. They are reminders that the forest is not empty at night. It is filled with watchful eyes, sharp senses, and movements too quick or subtle to follow. Each step taken by these predators is a reminder of the ancient rhythm that still beats beneath the modern world. What is most striking, perhaps, is how unseen they often remain. A human might walk through the forest feeling the solitude of darkness pressing around them, never knowing that foxes are circling at a distance, that wolves are weaving through the trees, or that a wildcat has watched them silently from the shadows. The predators know where humans are long, before humans ever sense them. To walk at night is to enter their realm, and though they rarely reveal themselves, they are always aware. The forest belongs to them in ways we can only partially understand, Their senses tuned to frequencies of sound, scent, and motion far beyond our reach. And yet, despite their power, predators do not rule the forest with cruelty. They take only what they need, leaving behind a system that endures because of them. There is an honesty in their movements, a purity in their purpose. They do not hunt for glory or waste. Their survival is simple, necessary, and inextricably tied to the survival of everything else around them. Without the fox, mice would strip the land bare. Without wolves, deer would destroy young saplings before they could grow into trees. Without the wildcat, balance would falter in quieter ways, hidden in the small spaces of the undergrowth. Each predator is not a terror of the night, but a vital part of its design. So when the forest settles into darkness, and the air grows cooler under the watch of the moon, the predators begin their silent procession. They are not intruders, but the true inhabitants of the night. Every step, every pause, every flicker of movement is a note in a symphony too vast for us to fully hear. To imagine the forest without them is to imagine a world unmoored, a night that has lost its rhythm. And so, as foxes, wolves, and wildcats continue their quiet patrols, unseen but always present, the forest remains alive in ways that are felt more than seen. They are its pulse, its shadow, its living reminder that the night is not empty, but filled with watchers who move in silence, shaping the world around them with every step. The night draped its heavy cloak across the forest, and beneath that shadowy covering, the tallest of the trees stood as silent guardians of an ancient kingdom. They rose with patient dignity, trunks stretching upward like pillars of a forgotten cathedral, their crowns interwoven into a living roof that swayed softly in the breeze. These giants had watched centuries pass, had endured storms, droughts, fires, and still remained rooted deep in the earth, it stretching endlessly toward the stars. At night, when the bustle of daylight quieted and the smaller lives of the forest sought safety, the trees seemed to breathe more slowly, to settle into a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. And yet, even in their stillness, they were alive with secrets. The creaking of branches was the first sound that betrayed their presence. When the wind wound its way through the forest, bending boughs and rubbing old wood against old wood, the sound was like whispers exchanged in the darkness. To some, it seemed mournful like groans from giants who had stood too long, but to others, it carried comfort, a reminder that life pulsed quietly even in the most shadowed hours. These groans and sighs were not the cries of strain, but the voices of trees shifting in their sleep, making room for the night creatures that depended on them. For in truth, the giants never rested alone. As the daylight faded, they became hosts to another world entirely one, invisible from the forest floor. Their bark, furrowed and rough, was a landscape for countless beings. Beetles, ants, spiders, and moths that clung tightly to the ridges, moving slowly in the cool night air. Each groove was a path, each crack an entrance to unseen chambers. Moss carpeted some trunks, while vines wrapped themselves tightly, climbing toward the canopy. And in that canopy, a metropolis stirred. What appeared from below as a crown of stillness was, in truth, alive with movement. Moths fluttered among the leaves, their wings patterned like fragments of moonlight. They traced erratic paths through the air, drawn descents carried from blossoms that only opened in darkness. Some moths were no bigger than a fingernail, delicate and fragile, while others were vast enough that their wing beats created a faint hush, like breath against the ear. They were pollinators of the night, carrying life from tree to tree, just as bees did by day. Around them, smaller insects followed invisible routes, guided by signals no human eye could detect, each adding its part to the great, unseen exchange that kept the forest alive. Bats soon joined this chorus of movement, gliding soundlessly between the trees, weaving through the dark with the precision of masters. Their cries, too high for human ears to perceive, bounced back from the branches, creating a map sharper than sight. They swooped and twisted, catching moths mid-flight, snapping them from the air in silence. To watch them, if one could hover among the treetops, would be to witness a dance swift, purposeful, yet strangely graceful. And as the bats fed, the trees themselves remained impartial hosts, offering no judgment, no resistance. They were simply the stage upon which the nightly play unfolded. Deeper in the canopy, frogs clung to leaves dampened by the night's moisture. Their throats pulsed as they called, their voices rising like droplets into the air. Some were soft and tentative, while others croaked with authority, marking territory or beckoning mates. High above, where moonlight occasionally caught the tips of branches, owls perched, their feathers blending seamlessly into bark. Their round eyes pierced the darkness with ease, watching, waiting. The resting giants carried them all, supporting predator and prey alike, silent pillars of life's balance. Sometimes, when the air grew still, the only sounds were the tiny rustles of creatures moving across bark. Termites worked in endless shifts, building their hidden highways within fallen branches still lodged against the trunks. Ants marched in tireless columns, carrying fragments of leaves, insects, and detritus back to unseen nests. If one pressed an ear against the bark, perhaps the faint tremor of all that movement could be heard, a low vibration, like the murmur of countless voices overlapping. The giants were not asleep. They were alive with quiet industry. But not all the presences upon them were so small. Raccoons climbed with nimble ease, their masked faces glancing back and forth as they sought fruit, eggs, or insects tucked within the bark. Porcupines shuffled heavily along limbs, gnawing on tender shoots. Even wildcats, sleek and silent, sometimes ascended, moving upward in pursuit of a bird or monkey. The trees bore them all, unshaken, their branches bending, but rarely breaking under the weight of visitors. The giants themselves, too, were not passive in this dance of night. They shifted minutely, their leaves responding to changes in humidity, their roots drawing water from deep below. The faint opening of night-blooming flowers sent fragrance drifting downward, thickening the air with sweetness. This perfume drew not just moths, but also small mammals, sugar gliders, flying squirrels, even lemurs in distant forests, who came to sip nectar or gnaw on fruit. In doing so, they spread seeds far and wide, ensuring the survival of the very giants that fed them. Every now and then, a stronger wind would sweep through, stirring the canopy into a murmur. Branches rubbed against one another, producing a low groan like the shifting of a colossal body. Leaves shivered, scattering droplets of dew like tiny stars. The sound was so vast, so resonant, that it reminded all who lived below of their own smallness. Beneath the giants, foxes paused mid-step, deer lifted their heads, and even predators hesitated. The trees commanded respect, not by movement, not by roar, but simply by presence. And yet, even these titans bore scars. Lightning strikes split trunks, leaving charred wounds where bark had once been whole. Some bore deep gashes from claws, evidence of countless generations of climbing animals. Others leaned at precarious angles, their roots half exposed from storms that had torn the soil. Still they stood, living archives of the forest's history. A single tree could hold in its rings the record of centuries of floods, droughts, fires, and renewal. To walk among them at night was to walk among time itself, tall and silent, but never still. The hidden world of insects upon their bark was perhaps the most mysterious. Bioluminescent beetles glowed faintly, tiny green lanterns shifting along branches. Termites released pheromones in patterns that mapped invisible highways. Spiders spun webs so fine that moonlight barely caught them, turning them to silver threads against the dark. Each of these lives was small, almost imperceptible, yet together they created a buzzing, creeping, shifting layer of activity that made the giants seem to hum with life. And sometimes, in rare moments, the giants seemed to answer. A deep creak, resonant and low, would roll through the trunk as if the tree itself had spoken. Some believed it was only wood expanding or sap moving with the night's temperature. But to those who listened closely, it felt more like the sigh of an ancient being, one that had seen too much, held too much, to ever truly sleep. The resting giants of the forest are not still, though they give the illusion of silence. They are hosts, providers, protectors, and witnesses. They cradle life upon their branches, within their bark, and beneath their roots. Even in darkness, they perform their quiet labor, pulling carbon from the air, exhaling oxygen, holding the soil in place, and sheltering countless creatures. To lie beneath them on a night when the moonlight filters through, listening to the creaks and sighs above, is to feel the weight of something eternal. These trees, these sentinels of shadow, are not just part of the forest, they are the forest. And in their presence, one cannot help but feel that the night belongs to them. The hidden waters of the forest at night are like the veins of a living body, carrying life quietly and continuously through channels that seem almost invisible during the day. When darkness folds itself over the canopy and the trees stretch their shadows across the land, these rivers, streams, and ponds undergo a transformation that few ever witness. The daylight surface, where ripples glisten and birds come to drink, becomes something far more mysterious in the hours after sunset. The waters breathe in rhythm with the night, and every sound that touches them seems amplified, echoing across the rippling surfaces and down into the submerged silence below. If the forest itself is an orchestra, then the waters are the low, steady notes that bind it together, a quiet but constant hum of life and movement. Along the banks of narrow streams, the air is heavy with moisture. The cool mist rises upward, weaving among roots and hanging vines, settling like a veil on leaves that droop toward the current. Crickets sing from the reeds, their chirping steady, weaving into the rhythm of the night. Frogs emerge from the muddy banks, their throats swelling like pulsing lanterns before they release deep, resonant calls that roll across the darkened water. Each call is part of a chorus, and as the hours deepen, the voices overlap into a soundscape that feels both chaotic and perfectly ordered. Some croaks are short and sharp, piercing the air like warnings, while others stretch low and mournful, the sound carrying far downstream, announcing territory or searching for mates. Hidden just beneath the surface, fish stir. By day they remain cautious, darting into shadow at the hint of movement, but at night they become bolder. Nocturnal fish rise from the depths of still pools, gliding upward like silent phantoms. Their scales catch the moonlight when it filters through gaps in the canopy, turning them into silver streaks that shimmer and vanish in an instant. Insects hover above the water, dancing on wings so delicate that each beat seems like the whisper of a secret. Moths dip low, sometimes brushing the surface, and in those fleeting moments, hungry mouths strike. A fish leaps from the darkness below, the snap of jaws breaking the surface tension with a sudden splash before sinking back into the deep. Further along the rivers, where the current winds between thick roots, the night belongs to amphibians. Tree frogs cling to slick bark, their bulbous eyes catching every glimmer of light. They leap from branch to branch, from rock to reed, sending tiny ripples outward that disturb the surface just enough to hint at their presence. Tadpoles swirl in shallow pools, their movements unseen in the dim glow, yet they are part of the life machine that never ceases its work. These waters are nurseries as much as they are highways. Eggs cling to grasses at the edges, some trembling with the stirring of life inside, ready to burst forth into the world at dawn. Owls drift overhead, their wings silent as they sweep low across ponds searching for prey. To the fish, the shadow of wings on the water is a warning as old as time. In an instant, what was calm becomes chaos. Schools scatter, vanishing into reeds and weeds, their bodies twisting with startling agility. The owl snatches, sometimes successful, sometimes not, leaving behind ripples that widen until the pond is still again. Silence returns, but it is never absolute. The waters hold too much life for stillness to last. Insects become rulers of the night by these waters. Swarms of mosquitoes rise, their high-pitched whines joining the deeper sounds of frogs and crickets. Beetles skim across the surface like black pearls darting on invisible strings, their legs moving so quickly they seem to float on air. Water striders glide gracefully, leaving tiny V-shaped trails in their wake, their every motion exaggerated in the silvery reflection of the moon. Beneath them, unseen predators lie in wait: fish, frogs, and even snakes coiled like shadows along the bottom. The water's surface is a fragile boundary between two worlds, the one above, ruled by wings and legs, and the one below, governed by fins and gills. When the night deepens, the hidden waters begin to sing differently. The frogs grow louder, their chorus thick and almost overwhelming, as though the very earth beneath them vibrates with their voices. Larger creatures arrive at the banks. Deer bend low, their breath steaming in the cool night air as they sip cautiously. Every flick of an ear betrays their awareness that predators are near. The water reflects their wide, dark eyes, shimmering as they pull their muzzles away and retreat into the brush. Elsewhere, wildcats prowl silently, their eyes glinting with feral light. They move with patience, waiting for the right moment to strike at an unsuspecting drinker. For them, the waters are not a sanctuary, but a hunting ground, a place where hunger may finally be satisfied. In stagnant ponds where lilies spread across the surface, the night holds a slower rhythm. Here the croaks of bullfrogs roll like thunder, deep and commanding, drowning out the higher chirps of smaller kin. Fireflies drift low above the surface, their glowing bodies blinking in irregular patterns that reflect off the water. It looks as though the pond itself is alive with sparks of green and gold light. Each flicker, each shimmer, gives the illusion of stars scattered not across the heavens, but right here, close enough to touch. Beneath the lily, turtles stir, moving silently as they push through stems and shadows. They rise occasionally, their heads breaking the water's skin, taking a slow breath before vanishing once more. Not far from the ponds, the faster streams take on their own character. The constant rush of water against rocks creates a song of movement that no silence can overpower. The sound masks the smaller creatures, making it harder to hear the croaks and clicks that dominate quieter waters. Yet the life here is just as rich. Trout and minnows dart between stones, using the cover of darkness to search for food without the ever-watchful eyes of birds. Eels emerge from hidden crevices, their bodies twisting in sinuous patterns, gliding with a patience that speaks of predatory cunning. On the banks, raccoons shuffle, their nimble paws reaching into the water to snatch crayfish or unsuspecting fish, their masked faces reflecting curiosity as much as hunger. Even the air above these hidden waters carries life. Bats swoop in looping arcs, their shrill cries too high for human ears, but their effect unmistakable. One after another, they dive toward the surface, skimming just above the ripples to snatch up insects. Each successful catch is a fleeting motion, a blur too quick for the eye to follow, leaving only the faint sound of wings beating the night air. Together, bats, frogs, fish, and insects weave a constant cycle of predator and prey, a balancing act that has existed for countless generations, unbroken and enduring. Deeper into the forest, where streams widen into quiet lagoons, the waters take on a more haunting quality. Mist rises thick and heavy, curling into shapes that drift among the trees. The moon, if it manages to break through the canopy, reflects faintly on the glassy surface, turning it into a silver mirror. Every ripple, every break in the water, distorts that reflection, creating ghostly images that shift and vanish with the slightest movement. Here, larger creatures prowl the banks: jaguars in distant jungles, wolves in temperate forests, crocodiles in swamps. Their presence is often unseen, but never absent. The waters, so inviting to the smaller beings, are also places of danger, where one wrong step or careless moment could mean sudden death. And yet, despite this constant dance of survival, the hidden waters exude calm. To sit beside them at night is to hear a lullaby woven from countless voices, frogs, crickets, trickling currents, rustling reeds. It is not silence, but it is peace. A peace that comes from knowing that everything is in its place, that every sound is part of a larger harmony. The frogs do not croak to fill the air without reason. The fish do not leap from the surface for nothing. The insects do not swarm without purpose. Each action, each motion, feeds into the cycle that sustains the forest. Toward dawn, the energy of the water shifts. The frogs grow quieter, their calls softening as if exhausted from the night-long chorus. The fish retreat to safer depths, where the growing light will conceal them from aerial hunters. The bats, satisfied with their harvest of insects, return to their roosts, leaving the skies calm once more. The mist lingers, faint and dissolving, as the first beams of sunlight touch the surface. It is as if the forest's hidden waters exhale, preparing to hide their secrets again beneath the cover of daylight. The night's symphony fades, but its memory lingers in every ripple, every dew-laden blade of grass along the bank. To those who wander the forest by night, the hidden waters are not simply streams, rivers, or ponds. They are living worlds of their own, microcosms within the vast body of the wilderness. They are places where silence and noise coexist, where predators stalk and prey thrive, where life hums quietly in rhythms unseen. They are the secret stages of survival, where dramas unfold beneath the moon, invisible to most eyes, yet vital to all existence. And when the sun finally rises, these waters retreat into the background, their voices soft, waiting patiently for the night to return so they may sing again. High above the forest floor, where branches weave together into tangled platforms of life, the night has its own quiet pulse. The canopy, so vibrant in daylight, with its endless chatter of parrots and insects, transforms into a hushed, watchful realm once the sun falls away. The thick ceiling of leaves filters the moonlight into fragments, casting patches of soft illumination across the treetops. It is here, in this suspended world, that the most delicate whispers of the forest begin to stir. Each movement in the canopy is subtle, yet loaded with meaning. The faint rustle of feathers, the almost imperceptible scrape of talons on bark, the tremor of leaves stirred by wings passing through. These sounds, though light, are amplified by the silence that surrounds them, making the canopy feel like a place of secrets and hidden presences. To enter this world, even as an observer, is to be made aware of how much life continues above the human eye, out of reach, but never truly out of earshot. The first voices of night here belong to the owls. Their calls echo between the trees, sometimes hollow and haunting, sometimes sharp and clipped like a command. Each note serves a purpose-staking territory, drawing a mate, warning rivals away. To the untrained ear, an owl's hoot is eerie, almost spectral, yet to the forest it is simply communication. Owls rely on these vocal exchanges because their hunting depends so much on stealth and precision. While their wings are designed to glide without sound, their voices are tools of both intimidation and reassurance, carrying across vast stretches of forest where their eyes cannot reach. In the moonlight, their silhouettes glide like shadows given shape, weaving through the higher branches with a mastery that feels almost supernatural. Owls are not alone in this upper kingdom. The nightjars, with their cryptic plumage and soft, continuous calls, join the nocturnal chorus. Unlike the commanding notes of the owls, nightjars hum low and steady, their voices more like a presence than a sound. To stand beneath the canopy and listen is to feel wrapped in a living fabric of noise, each strand contributing to the whole, each call woven into the texture of darkness. Their wings cut through the still air as they chase insects drawn upward by the faint glimmer of moonlight, turning the treetops into an invisible hunting ground. Unlike the daytime birds that burst with color and frantic activity, nightjars live in subtlety. They survive by blending into the shadows, by making their voices part of the forest's larger breath, rather than standing apart from it. Above the trees, the air holds a different weight. It is cooler, freer, less damp than the forest floor. Here the wind carries whispers of distant storms, and the leaves respond with murmurs of their own. Every shift in the air sets off a chain of reactions. Branches sway, vines tug, leaves rustle, and tiny creatures hidden among them stir in response. Bats flicker through the sky, darting between treetops with astonishing precision, their high-pitched calls bouncing back from the leaves in a language humans cannot hear. To them, the canopy is not just a hunting ground, but a vast three-dimensional map, alive with signals invisible to our senses. They weave patterns through the dark, their wings making soft clicks against the stillness. Their movements a reminder that even the air itself is alive at night. The canopy also shelters countless creatures that are rarely seen. Small primates, where they exist, emerge hesitantly, moving from branch to branch in search of fruit or insects. Rodents scurry across the vines with a nimbleness that defies gravity, while insects hum in vast numbers, their wings shimmering faintly in the moonlight. This hidden layer of life often goes unnoticed, but its activity is constant. Even when all seems still, something is moving, feeding, or watching. The canopy is never truly asleep, it is only quieter, its energy folded inward rather than shouted outward as it is during the day. The whispers of the canopy are not limited to animals. The trees themselves, so massive and seemingly immovable, become participants in the night. Their branches sway with low groans. Their leaves clatter softly as the wind stirs them. Each tree is like a giant instrument, playing a tune that depends on its height, its breadth, and the angle of the wind. These sounds are not random. They are part of the forest's own communication system. Leaves falling from the canopy may trigger subtle responses below, as creatures sense opportunities for food or shelter. A broken branch or an unusual creak can draw the attention of predators, or warn smaller animals to remain still. To those who live in this layered world, every sound is a message, every whisper a clue. Moonlight, fragmented by the dense foliage, creates shifting mosaics across the upper branches. Shadows stretch and shrink as the wind moves the leaves, giving the illusion of things moving where there may be none. To a watching eye, the canopy becomes a stage of illusions. A patch of light might resemble an animal crouching, while a cluster of shadows may appear to leap when only the wind has stirred them. For predators and prey alike, this play of light and dark becomes a test of patience and perception. The owl waits, silent and poised, until movement confirms the presence of a meal. A small mammal freezes, hoping its stillness will render it invisible among the flickering shapes. Insects form the hidden heartbeat of this world. Moths rise from their daytime shelters, their wings painted in intricate patterns that only the moonlight reveals. Drawn by unseen cues, they flutter toward open spaces between the branches, becoming prey for the bats and birds that wait for them. Beetles scrape against the bark, feeding on mosses and fungi that thrive in the dampness. Tiny spiders spin webs across narrow gaps in the canopy, hoping to catch the very insects drawn upward into their silken traps. Each of these lives, though small, is essential to the rhythm of the forest, and together they create the murmuring undercurrent that gives the canopy its constant motion. Listening to this realm from below, a person might feel that the forest is speaking in a language beyond comprehension. The calls of the owls, the hum of insects, the whisper of wings, the sigh of trees together, they form a dialogue too vast to follow. Yet, in its way, it is a language that defines the forest's character at night. Cautious, mysterious, filled with pauses and silences that carry as much meaning as the sounds themselves. The canopy speaks through hints and impressions rather than declarations, through murmurs that suggest rather than reveal. To experience these whispers is to be reminded of how alive the night truly is, even in its quietest moments. The canopy holds a delicate balance where predators glide silently, prey moves carefully, and voices echo with restrained urgency. It is a place where the ordinary becomes spectral, where the smallest rustle feels like the arrival of something unseen. In this suspended world above the ground, time feels altered, moments stretch, sounds linger, and every movement carries weight. The forest, in its highest reaches, speaks softly but with endless persistence, reminding us that even in darkness, life finds ways to be heard. When you step into the forest at night, one thing becomes immediately clear: you are not alone. The silence that feels so vast and enveloping is not empty silence at all. It is alive, filled with hidden breath, with unseen motion, and most hauntingly, with the eyes that linger just beyond the limits of human vision. In the glow of a torchlight, or even in the faint reflection of moonlight, eyes emerge from the shadows, quiet, unblinking, and watchful. They belong to deer grazing in the undergrowth, to badgers shuffling low to the earth, to hunters moving with stealth. A forest at night is a place of gazes, of silent exchanges between those who wander and those who watch. The phenomenon is simple in its science. Many nocturnal animals have a layer of tissue behind their retinas called the tapetum lucidum, a reflective surface that bounces light back through their eyes, amplifying it and allowing them to see in dim conditions where human eyes would fail. To us, this creates the eerie illusion of glowing eyes suspended in darkness. A deer's eyeshine may glimmer in soft gold, a fox in amber, a wolf in a piercing green. Each pair of eyes seems almost otherworldly, like lanterns placed in the forest to remind us of presences that do not need to announce themselves aloud. But to those who have spent nights in the woods, these eyes are not merely a curiosity of nature. They are a language. They are a reminder that the forest is not ours, and that in these hours, we are visitors passing through a kingdom of shadows and quiet rulers. Imagine walking along a narrow path as the moon breaks through the branches overhead. The air is cool, scented with damp moss and fallen leaves. Your steps crackle softly against the forest floor, and suddenly you feel it, that subtle prickling along the skin, the certainty of being observed. You turn your head, sweep your torchlight toward the trees, and there they are, two gleaming points of reflected light staring back. If it is a deer, the eyes will often hover at a height just above the tall grasses, still and unblinking. The animal freezes, hoping you will move along without recognizing its form. If it is a fox, the eyes are lower, closer to the ground, with a certain sly flicker to them, appearing and disappearing as the creature darts behind brush. If it is a predator like a wolf or a lynx, the eyes remain steady, unwavering, as though locked upon you, measuring, deciding. Each reflection tells a different story, each a reminder that vision is not one-sided in the forest. For nocturnal hunters, watching is survival. An owl perched high in the canopy peers down with round, luminous eyes, waiting for the faintest rustle of prey. A wildcat crouches behind the veil of ferns, its gaze fixed, patient. Even the smaller creatures, the badger, the raccoon, the pine marten, watch for movement, cautious and opportunistic. To them, the forest is a web of signals, every sound and glimmer feeding into their understanding of danger or opportunity. But for humans, those sudden glowing eyes provoke something deeper, something more primal. There is a reason that so many old tales and myths revolve around the forest at night and the strange lights within it. To see eyes where no body is visible, to feel the scrutiny of an unseen presence, awakens in us an ancient awareness. Long before we carried lamps and torches, our ancestors sat around campfires, wary of the glints that appeared at the edges of flamelight. Those glints could mean food or danger. They could belong to prey that would sustain the tribe, or to predators waiting to strike. Even today, the feeling persists. You may tell yourself that it is only a deer, that it is only a fox, and yet the sensation of those eyes upon you does not fade. It is a humbling reminder that the forest is alive in ways we cannot fully control, and that other beings hold their own watch as we move among them. Some nights, the eyes are plentiful. Step into a clearing, sweep the torch across the tall grasses, and dozens of tiny reflections appear, as though stars have spilled upon the earth. Rabbits nibbling at roots, mice darting between stems, even insects with compound eyes catching the glow. The forest seems alive with constellations, each tiny light a life in motion. And yet, in contrast, there are nights when only a single pair of eyes reveals itself silent, patient, fixed. In such moments, the darkness feels denser, the air heavier, as though the forest itself is holding its breath. Hunters, both human and animal, have long relied on this phenomenon. Indigenous trackers knew how to move silently, scanning for the telltale shine of prey's eyes. Early night hunters carried lamps, their beams bouncing against the brush until they caught the reflection of game. Even today, researchers studying nocturnal species use the same method, shining lights into the undergrowth to map the positions of creatures otherwise invisible. The eyes are not just mystery, they are guidance, markers that reveal the pulse of life hidden by the night. And yet, the magic of those eyes not only in the knowledge they grant, but in the feelings they stir. To see them is to be reminded of dual truths, that the forest is never empty, and that you are never unobserved. The trees may appear silent, but behind them life is alert, attuned, and often watching. There are stories, whispered in folklore, of eyes that were not meant to be seen. Farmers spoke of will-o'-the-wisps, ghostly lights leading travelers astray. Others claimed that certain eyes belonged not to animals, but to spirits of the wood's guardians or tricksters, keeping watch over trespassers. The uncanny gleam, appearing and vanishing without sound, wove itself naturally into the fabric of myth. Even in modern times, when science explains the tepidum lucidum and reflection, the unease does not fade. Science may tell us what causes the glow, but it cannot take away the chill of realizing something unseen is watching. The forest thrives on this balance of concealment and revelation. For most creatures, their survival depends on not being seen at all. And yet, in the shimmer of light against their eyes, they are betrayed. Their invisible presence becomes known, if only for a heartbeat. Then, with a flicker of movement, they vanish again, swallowed by shadow, leaving you with only the memory of their gaze. In these encounters, it is often unclear who is the true observer and who is the observed. We shine our lights to discover the forest's secrets, but in doing so, we reveal ourselves. The deer, the fox, the owl, they are watching us as intently as we are watching them. To them, we are the intruders, the figures of curiosity or threat, moving clumsily through their world. Their glowing eyes remind us of the mirror the forest holds up of the fact that for every gaze we cast outward, there is another gaze returning. Perhaps this is why the eyes in the dark feel so haunting. They force us to acknowledge that we are part of something larger, a web of awareness that does not begin or end with us. In the daylight, the illusion of dominance is easy to maintain. We walk the trails, study the tracks, map the terrain, and convince ourselves that the forest is ours to understand. But in the night, under the weight of those silent stares, the truth resurfaces. The forest does not belong to us. It belongs to the watchers. As hours stretch on and the night deepens, the eyes appear and fade, each one a fleeting reminder of the lives carried out beyond our knowing. The deer that lowers its head to graze again, the fox that slips back into the brush, the owl that tilts its gaze skyward, listening for wings in the dark. And perhaps, in the deepest shadows, something else, something that does not reveal itself so easily, but whose presence lingers, watching until you too turn away. The eyes that watch are not a threat, though they may stir fear. They are a reminder of presence, of relationship, of the truth that in the forest at night, nothing is ever solitary. The silence is shared, the paths crossed, the gazes met and returned. And as you walk on, torchlight sweeping across the endless veil of shadows, you carry with you the knowledge that the watchers remain. Unseen, unspoken, but always there. The forest holds its secrets well, but in the darkness, the glowing eyes tell just enough. When the night settles fully upon the forest, and the last golden streaks of dusk have long vanished from the sky, another presence rises to claim the darkness. It is not the growl of a predator, nor the wings of an owl circling overhead. It is something subtler, yet no less commanding. From beneath the roots, from the leaf litter, from the bark of trees and the folds of tall grass, a multitude of voices begins to stir. These voices do not speak in words, nor do they call for silence. They speak instead in rhythm, in pulses, in the ceaseless drumming of existence itself. This is the chorus of insects, the oldest orchestra the forest knows. The sound comes gradually at first, almost imperceptible. A single cricket releases a tentative chirp. Another answers, its tone slightly different, as though testing its own instrument. Then a trill begins, soft but persistent, joined by a low whirring in the background. Within minutes, the darkness is no longer silent. It is alive with vibrations, overlapping patterns, and layered voices that weave into one another. The forest floor hums, the canopy whispers, the undergrowth rattles. It is as if every hidden life has remembered its part in an ancient song, and together they build a wall of sound that fills every corner of the night. The crickets are among the most familiar. Their song is sharp and rhythmic, born from the rubbing of wing against wing. They do not sing for beauty, though beauty is often what humans hear in their cadence. They sing to call, to attract, to claim their space within the darkened world. A single male may call for hours, repeating his note tirelessly, staking his claim with the persistence of a heartbeat. When many gather together, their overlapping voices form a tremulous field of sound, like ripples spreading endlessly across water. Each note seems to echo and fold into the next, until it becomes impossible to distinguish one voice from another. And yet, to those who listen closely, the songs are not without meaning. Some chirps are slow and steady, steady as the pendulum of a clock, a call for a mate that says, "I am here, I am strong." Others are rapid, urgent, fevered bursts, a cry of competition or challenge. In some regions, different species create different patterns, entirely trills that stretch into the night like threads, clicks that punctuate the silence, or rhythmic patterns that resemble the pulse of drums. The crickets are composers of rhythm, each performing in their own narrow space of time and frequency, yet together they weave a single fabric of sound. Above them, higher in the trees, the cicadas add their own voice. Louder, stranger, sometimes overwhelming, their songs vibrate not only in the air, but in the body of anyone listening. A single cicada can fill the silence with a droning whine that rises in pitch, swells, and then fades, like a wave breaking upon a shore. When they sing together, entire groves seem to pulse with their collective energy. Some species synchronize their calls, rising and falling in unison, as if bound by a secret rhythm passed through the air itself. Others overlap chaotically, creating a buzzing chaos that feels almost electric. The cicada's song is older than memory. Fossils show their kind has been here for millions of years, vibrating the air with the same resonant drone long before humans walked beneath the canopy. In their song is endurance, a reminder that long before human voices spoke, the world was already singing. And then there are the beetles. Less familiar perhaps, for many of them create sounds too subtle to be easily heard by human ears. Some click their bodies together, a small percussion in the quiet. Others rub legs against wings or wings against shell, producing a rasping rhythm hidden beneath the louder cries of cicadas and crickets. Their calls are not always meant for great distances. Some are intimate, whispers exchanged between individuals, the kind of song that carries only a few inches, but holds meaning enough to guide a life. Together, these countless species create what feels less like noise and more like a living fabric of the night. To walk through the forest at such an hour is to enter a world where sound surrounds from every angle. It does not come from one direction alone. It rises from the soil at your feet, from the bark of trees beside you, from the very air around your head. The song envelops, presses close, until silence itself feels like a foreign concept. To many, the chorus of insects is a lullaby. Its steady repetition soothes the mind, masking sharper sounds, creating a blanket of constancy beneath which sleep can come easily. To others, it is disquieting, a reminder of how much life thrives unseen in the shadows. Yet whether one finds comfort or unease in the chorus, its presence cannot be denied. It is the heartbeat of the forest, relentless and ancient. What makes it remarkable is not only its persistence, but its variety. Within the steady chirp of crickets, there are hundreds of tiny variations. Within the drone of cicadas, subtle shifts in tone and rhythm emerge. Even the hum of beetles carries differences, barely perceptible, but vital to those who live within the sound. For insects, these songs are not background. They are messages, declarations, signals of survival and intent. Imagine for a moment the perspective of a cricket hidden beneath a leaf. Its world is defined by vibration. The call it sends may travel only a short distance, but within that range it is everything. It speaks to potential mates, rivals, predators. The insect's life depends on its ability to produce that sound, to keep repeating it into the dark, night after night, until it is answered. Now imagine the perspective of a predator listening in the night, a frog crouched in the wet grasses near a pond. For the frog, the chorus is not a blur of sound, but a map. Each chirp reveals a possible meal. Each trill is a direction, a coordinate in the darkness. To the frog, the song of the forest is a signal to hunt. And so, the chorus is not only beauty, not only rhythm, it is survival itself, echoing in multiple directions at once. Sometimes, the chorus reaches such intensity that it feels almost physical. The air hums. The body vibrates with the resonance of countless wings and legs, stridulating in unison. One might stand still in a clearing and feel as though the forest has transformed into a single breathing creature, its body humming with energy. It is not the voice of one, but of thousands, layered and inseparable. Yet even within this cacophony, silence holds its place. Every so often, the chorus falters. A sudden pause spreads through the undergrowth. The chirps cease, the drones collapse. For a moment, all is still. These silences often come when a predator moves, when the air shifts with something larger than the insects themselves. They are the breath between notes, the reminder that the orchestra is made not only of sound, but of awareness. And then, as quickly as it stopped, the song begins again, filling the night once more. For those who spend time in the forest at night, these insect songs become markers of time. Hours pass, and the rhythm shifts. Early in the evening, crickets dominate, their sharp chirps cutting through the air. Later, as midnight nears, cicadas may rise with a pulsing drone. Toward the cool hours before dawn, the chorus softens, the calls fading, until only a few persistent voices remain. The cycle repeats each night, as steady as the rising and setting of the moon. And always, within the layered sound, there is a sense of connection. The chorus is not random, not meaningless noise. It is communication woven into the fabric of the forest. It is a testament to how countless small lives can together create something vast, something larger than themselves. No single cricket or cicada intends to create a symphony. Yet together, their voices form one. Humans, listening from the outside, may never decode the precise language of these songs. We may never know the full intent behind every trill, every drone, every subtle variation of pitch, but we can hear the effect. We can feel the way the chorus binds the night together, the way it defines the rhythm of darkness itself. And perhaps that is the true gift of the insect chorus. Not that it speaks to us in words we can understand, but that it speaks at all, constantly, tirelessly, reminding us that the night is never empty. It is alive, filled with sound, filled with voices that are both alien and eternal. So as you lie beneath the canopy, eyes closed, listening, you may begin to hear not just noise, but the living presence of the forest itself. Each chirp, each buzz, each droning hum is part of something greater. The insects are not simply filling silence. They are shaping it, creating an atmosphere that has existed long before us and will endure long after. The chorus of insects is the eternal soundtrack of night, a song without beginning, without end, carried forward by generation after generation of small, tireless musicians. And as the darkness stretches on, their voices continue, unbroken, into the hours that led once again toward dawn. When you spend long hours in the forest at night, listening to the rhythm of life all around, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Amid the constant hum of cicadas, the rhythmic chirping of crickets, the occasional rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth, there are moments when the sound ceases entirely. A hush falls, soft and sudden, as though the very air has been drawn into the lungs of the forest and held there. It is the kind of silence that seems to have weight, pressing gently against your ears, settling over the leaves and soil, and wrapping the towering trunks in an invisible shroud. These pauses are never long, but they are profound. They occur without warning, sometimes in the middle of a relentless chorus of insects, sometimes when the moon drifts behind a cloud, casting the world into an even deeper darkness. One instant, the forest is alive with sound, vibrating with life, and the next, there is nothing but the subtle creak of branches swaying in the night breeze. Even the air seems different in these moments, still and dense, carrying with it the faint, musty smell of damp soil and moss. The forest, you realize, is not merely a backdrop for life. It is a living entity in its own right, capable of rhythm, capable of breath. And in these moments of silence, it feels as though the forest itself pauses to observe, to listen, to mark the passage of time in a language that is older than any human. The effect is almost hypnotic. It draws you into a stillness that mirrors the stillness of the forest around you. Every tiny detail, usually drowned out by the chorus of the night, becomes suddenly vivid. The shimmer of dew on a fallen leaf, the faint glimmer of a spider's web catching the last traces of moonlight, the subtle scent of wet bark and decaying leaves all become heightened, more immediate, more alive. There is a strange, almost sacred quality to these pauses. They remind you that the forest is not merely a collection of trees, plants, and animals. It is a community, an intricate network of life where every creature, every branch, every root plays a role in a larger design. The silence is as much a part of that design as the sound. It is the breathing space between notes in a symphony, the quiet that gives meaning to the music. Without it, the chorus of the night would be overwhelming, chaotic, impossible to follow. It is in the silence that you truly appreciate the complexity, the delicacy, the interconnectedness of all that exists within these darkened woods. Sometimes the silence is a prelude. The creatures of the forest seem to know when a predator approaches, when the wind shifts, when the unseen events of the night are about to unfold. Crickets stop their chirping mid-note. Cicadas drop their drone. Even the soft rustle of leaves seems to pause. It is a subtle, almost imperceptible signal that something has changed. The forest holds its breath, waiting, preparing. And you, an intruder and observer in this nocturnal world, feel the same tension, the same expectancy, as if the forest is communicating directly with you, telling you to pay attention, to move quietly, to watch. In these moments, the contrast between sound and silence becomes almost overwhelming. The human mind, attuned to pattern and rhythm, notices the absence immediately. The forest, normally a blur of overlapping noises, becomes a canvas of subtle textures. You might hear the faintest scuttling of an insect over bark, the gentle drip of water from a leaf onto the forest floor, the low, resonant thump of a distant animal moving through undergrowth. These sounds, normally lost in the chorus, take on a new significance. Each is a heartbeat, a pulse, a sign that life continues even when the forest seems still. There is also a psychological element to this quiet. In the depths of darkness, after hours of listening to the relentless music of insects and nocturnal creatures, the sudden cessation of sound can feel almost unnerving. The mind, conditioned to expect constant activity, interprets the silence as something more than natural. Some people speak of feeling watched, of sensing unseen presences in the stillness. Others describe a deep, meditative calm, as though the forest is offering a moment of respite, a chance to synchronize with its own rhythm. In either case, these moments leave a lasting impression. They mark the passage of the night, creating a punctuation between the relentless cycles of activity that surround them. Observing the forest in these moments also reveals something about the creatures themselves. Many nocturnal animals have adapted to the rhythms of sound and silence. Some rely on the chorus for hunting, using the overlapping noises to mask their approach. Others are acutely sensitive to pauses, knowing that stillness often precedes opportunity or danger. Predators, from owls gliding silently through the canopy to foxes moving cautiously through the underbrush, use the forest's quiet as a signal, a guide for movement. Even the smallest insects respond to these brief lapses in sound, adjusting their calls, their positions, their strategies. It is a sophisticated, living choreography, performed with precision that humans can only glimpse in fragments. The length and timing of these pauses vary. Some last only a few seconds, barely enough for you to register the absence of sound before it resumes. Others stretch longer, lingering for a minute or more, deepening the sensation of otherworldliness. Sometimes the forest seems to hold still for no reason at all, as if testing the listener's patience, as if reminding you that the night is not yours, that you are merely a visitor. And when the sounds return, when the crickets begin again, when cicadas resume their droning, it is like waking from a dream. The forest hums back to life, the intricate symphony resumes, and you are reminded of the fragility and resilience of life in this hidden world. These moments of silence also offer an opportunity to reflect. In the dense, perpetual activity of the forest, both by day and by night, humans often fail to notice the subtle rhythms that define life. We are accustomed to associating sound with vitality, movement with presence. Yet here, in the pauses, the forest teaches a different lesson. Life is not only in the doing, the moving, the sounding. It is also in stillness, in restraint, in the pauses that allow growth, observation, and survival. Every plant resting, every animal waiting, every insect pausing in the dark all participate in the forest's economy of energy and attention. Silence is part of survival, part of communication, part of life itself. As the night stretches on, these pauses continue, sometimes frequent, sometimes rare, unpredictable in their timing. The forest alternates between activity and stillness, weaving a complex pattern that marks the hours until the first light of dawn. Observing this pattern requires patience and attention, but those who do are rewarded with an understanding that goes beyond words. It is a lesson in subtlety, a reminder that even in a world dominated by sound, silence can be just as powerful, just as communicative, just as alive. When humans finally leave the forest, returning to the light of day, these moments linger in memory. You may find yourself recalling the strange hushes, the weight of still air, the almost sacred pause in which the forest seemed to breathe alongside you. It is a memory that endures, a whisper of the night that continues to resonate long after the cicadas have gone quiet, the crickets have stopped, and the nocturnal hunters have retreated. It is a testament to the complexity, the depth, and the quiet majesty of life that thrives out of sight, out of reach, and often unnoticed. Moments of silence in the forest at night are a reminder that life is not only in the constant motion and sound, but also in the gaps between. The stillness is not absence. It is presence in another form. It is the pulse behind the music, the breath behind the word, the space where life gathers itself before continuing. In these fleeting pauses, the forest shows its mastery over time and rhythm, teaching anyone who listens that even in darkness, even in stillness, life continues resilient, intricate, eternal. When night deepens in the forest, the familiar world of branches, leaves, and rustling creatures transforms into a place where the imagination is set free. In the same way that darkness magnifies the smallest details, it magnifies stories, whispers, and legends. Every flicker of moonlight, every rustle in the undergrowth, every distant call seems imbued with meaning beyond the natural. For centuries, humans have walked these woods and returned with tales of spirits that glide along the paths, of fairies dancing in pools of moonlight, and of wandering lights that float over the forest floor, seemingly alive. These stories are not mere flights of fancy. They are the product of long nights spent alone in the dark, listening to sounds that the human mind struggles to explain. The forest at night is a symphony of unfamiliar noises. A twig snaps, but you cannot see its source. Leaves whisper against each other in the faint wind, creating the illusion of footsteps just beyond your vision. Water drips from leaves and trickles into pools, sometimes echoing like voices calling across a hollow chamber. Each sound, when combined with the shadows and shapes cast by moonlight, takes on a life of its own. It is in this environment that folklore is born. Humans, creatures of story and pattern, attempt to make sense of the inexplicable. What might be a fox moving stealthily through the brush becomes a mischievous spirit in the tales told around fires. A distant owl call might transform into a warning from unseen beings who guard the forest as secrets. One of the most persistent elements of forest folklore is the notion of spirits inhabiting the woods. Across cultures, the forest has been seen as a boundary between the mundane and the supernatural. In some traditions, spirits are guardians of the trees, ensuring that no harm comes to the living canopy. They are said to glide along narrow paths, unseen but sensed, brushing past travelers with a cold breeze or causing a shadow to flicker in peripheral vision. The descriptions are remarkably consistent: ephemeral, quiet, and rarely hostile unless provoked. In the dead of night, when the forest is silent, even a small disturbance like a falling leaf can be interpreted as evidence of their presence. Fairies, too, are a recurring element in nocturnal forest folklore. Unlike spirits, they are often described as smaller, more mischievous beings. Their dances are said to create shimmering light patterns among the leaves, tiny flashes that flicker and disappear as quickly as they are noticed. Travelers who have spent time in the forest at night sometimes recount seeing these lights moving with a purpose, almost like the creatures are guiding or testing them. Folklore frequently warns that those who attempt to interfere by following, catching, or speaking to the fairies may find themselves lost or trapped until they have learned the forest has unwritten rules. These warnings are often told to children as lessons about respect, patience, and observation. In this way, mythology becomes a kind of moral compass, teaching humans how to behave in a place that is as dangerous physically as it is mentally. Another element of nighttime forest myths is the phenomenon of wandering lights. These lights, often called will-o'-the-wisps, ignis fatuus, or ghost lights, appear without source and move unpredictably. In some accounts, they hover just above the ground, bobbing in the mist like small lanterns carried by invisible hands. Travelers following them often report the lights leading them deeper into the forest, sometimes toward streams, bogs, or rock formations that are difficult to traverse. The lights are commonly seen in marshy areas, but are not limited to them, and their inexplicable movement creates both fear and fascination. Scientists explain these phenomena in terms of bioluminescence or methane gases igniting, but for centuries they inspired awe and caution. Those who encountered such lights alone at night often returned with stories filled with warning and wonder. Tales that evolved into oral legends passed through generations. Even the most skeptical traveler cannot deny the effect of perception in darkness. When your senses are heightened by the stillness and uncertainty of the forest, the mind begins to fill gaps in perception. A shadow might become a crouched figure. A distant croak might transform into a whispered voice. These sensory illusions are intensified by folklore, which teaches the forest's inhabitants to expect encounters with the unknown. There is a feedback loop. The forest provokes fear. Fear sparks imagination. Imagination fills the darkness with stories, and the stories reinforce the perceived reality. In this way, myths are not just entertainment. They are a natural response to an environment that is both beautiful and threatening. Animals also contribute to these encounters. The call of a fox, the hoot of an owl, or the rustle of a deer moving through undergrowth can all be misinterpreted as something supernatural. Frogs and crickets, usually mundane, take on an eerie rhythm at night, the repetitive calls becoming warnings or signals in the minds of listeners. Even the wind moving through leaves can be interpreted as footsteps or the sigh of a forest spirit. These natural sounds, unpredictable and sometimes amplified by the dense forest, create the perfect conditions for myths to flourish. The human mind, wired for pattern recognition, naturally seeks a narrative to explain the inexplicable. Encounters with the unknown are also shaped by visual perception. In the pale light of moon and stars, the forest takes on shapes that are difficult to categorize. Branches twist into forms resembling limbs. Shadows stretch in ways that defy normal proportions, and reflections of water can create ghostly images that vanish the moment they are noticed. Eyes adjust slowly to darkness, and in those moments of partial sight, anything can appear to be moving independently. These visual illusions, combined with natural sounds, create experiences that seem magical, uncanny, or terrifying, depending on the observer's state of mind. Cultural context further influences these encounters. In some traditions, the forest is a sacred place, inhabited by ancestral spirits or gods. In others, it is a liminal space, where those who enter risk being tested or punished for disrespect. Stories of the unknown serve a practical purpose. They instill caution in travelers, guiding behavior in a complex and potentially dangerous environment. When people hear tales of spirits guarding certain paths or lights leading astray, they tend to move more carefully, listen more attentively, and treat the forest with respect. Over time, these myths become self-reinforcing, influencing behavior and perpetuating the sense of mystery that surrounds the forest at night. Personal encounters, often subtle and fleeting, amplify the mystique. A traveler might glimpse a flicker of light moving quickly between trees, only to discover nothing upon closer inspection. They might hear a soft, deliberate rustle behind them, feel a brush of air, and turn to see nothing. These experiences, though explainable by natural phenomena, are interpreted through the lens of folklore and imagination. They become stories, retold with embellishment, shared around fires, or whispered in cabins far from the forest. Each telling reinforces the narrative of the unknown, making the forest at night a place where ordinary experiences become extraordinary. For centuries, these myths shaped human interaction with the forest. People avoided certain paths after dark, left offerings, or performed small rituals to appease unseen beings. Children were taught to respect the trees, the streams, and the creatures that moved silently in the shadows. Even seasoned travelers and hunters, who understood the dangers of wild animals and uneven terrain, found themselves influenced by stories of spirits and wandering lights. The unknown became a companion, a teacher, and a guide in a world that was otherwise physically and mentally challenging. Encounters with the unknown, therefore, are not only about fear, they are about attention, awareness, and adaptation. Those who heed the lessons embedded in myths are often safer and more observant. They move more carefully through dense undergrowth, listen more closely to the sounds of the forest, and notice changes that might indicate danger. The stories of spirits, fairies, and wandering lights serve as both warnings and narratives that connect generations of forest dwellers to the subtle truths of their environment. Even today, the forest continues to inspire awe. Researchers, explorers, and nighttime hikers report feelings similar to those described in folklore. A sense of being watched, a fleeting glimpse of movement that cannot be identified, a shifting pattern of light and shadow that seems almost sentient. Technology may provide explanations for many phenomena, but it cannot fully erase the visceral experience of walking alone in a dark forest, hearing sounds that seem deliberate, seeing lights that have no source, feeling a presence that may not be there. These encounters, like the stories of old, leave a lasting impression. Ultimately, the unknown in the forest is a combination of natural phenomena, human perception, and cultural imagination. It is the interplay of sound, shadow, movement, and myth that creates experiences that feel otherworldly. It reminds us that the world is larger, stranger, and more intricate than our senses alone can perceive. In the quiet moments after hearing an unexplained rustle, seeing a fleeting glow, or feeling the air shift around you, the forest teaches humility, patience, and reverence. Every encounter with the unknown, no matter how small or fleeting, connects us to a lineage of humans who have looked into the same darkness and been compelled to tell stories, to warn, to share wonder, and to remember. Even as the forest awakens to the first hints of dawn, those stories endure. They persist in memory, in retelling, and in the subtle caution with which humans approach the wild. In the forest at night, encounters with the unknown are both terrifying and illuminating, frightening, and instructive. They are a reminder that while humans may navigate the terrain, it is the forest that ultimately defines the rules of engagement, shaping experience, perception, and imagination in ways that are timeless. The forest at night is a theater of life that few witness in its entirety. Beneath the shadowed canopy, the delicate balance between predator and prey is constantly in motion, a silent drama performed in darkness, often just beyond human sight. In this hidden world, the hunter and the hunted move in ways both subtle and deliberate. Nothing is accidental. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, every glint of eyes in the moonlight is part of a calculated existence, a choreography dictated by survival instincts honed over millennia. For those who observe, even from a distance, the forest becomes a place of tension and suspense, where life hangs by the thinnest of threads. The predators of the forest are perfectly adapted to their environment. Wolves, sleek and silent, navigate the undergrowth with an elegance that belies their power. Their padded paws mute every step, allowing them to stalk with patience, testing the wind and listening for the smallest disturbance. Their eyes, reflecting the faint light of the moon, betray their presence only to those perceptive enough to notice. They are ambush specialists, timing their attacks to the rhythm of the night, aware of when their quarry is vulnerable and when it is alert. The forest is their domain, and every shadow is a potential hunting ground. Prey animals, in turn, have evolved defenses that are equally sophisticated. Deer, for example, move with constant vigilance, ears swiveling independently to detect sounds from all directions. Their muscles are perpetually coiled, ready to spring at the slightest hint of danger. Small mammals scuttle through the leaf litter, disappearing into burrows or underbrush at the first indication of a predator's approach. Birds roost high in the canopy, tucked into dense foliage, watching the forest floor for movement while remaining virtually invisible themselves. Every step, every motion, is measured against the possibility of a deadly encounter. One of the most fascinating aspects of this nocturnal dance is the interplay of strategy and instinct. Predators do not simply chase. They plan, they wait, they calculate. A fox may circle a clearing multiple times, observing the positions of rabbits, noting escape routes, and identifying weak points. Its patience is rewarded when at the perfect moment it launches a sudden, explosive attack that leaves its prey with little chance of escape. Similarly, prey species develop acute senses, anticipating danger before it becomes imminent. A rabbit sensing a slight shift in wind direction or a distant crunch of snow can vanish into the underbrush before the predator even knows it is there. In this way, the forest is a constant negotiation between awareness and stealth, reaction and anticipation. The presence of humans adds another layer to this nocturnal ecosystem. Hikers, hunters, or researchers may traverse the forest, their torches, flashlights, or movements disrupting the delicate balance of night activity. Animals may pause, sensing the intrusion, their routines interrupted. Yet often, the hunter and the hunted ignore humans altogether, continuing their cycles in a parallel world just outside our perception. This invisible theater reminds us that life in the forest is both continuous and independent, a reality that existed long before humans arrived and will persist long after. Observing it, even briefly, instills a sense of humility. We are witnesses to a system far larger and more intricate than ourselves. Predatory behavior at night is not limited to large mammals. Owls glide silently between branches, scanning the forest floor for small rodents. Their wings make no sound as they pivot and dive, talons extended to snatch an unwary mouse. Even bats, which many assume feed only on insects, are hunters of precision, using echolocation to map their prey's location with incredible accuracy. The interplay between predator and prey at these levels is subtle, intricate, and largely invisible. The forest seems to hold its breath as a moth flits past a branch, unaware that a bat hovers above, waiting for the perfect strike. The prey, in turn, have developed extraordinary adaptations. Camouflage, nocturnal habits, and acute senses allow them to survive in a landscape dominated by hunters. A fawn freezes at the scent of danger, its spotted coat blending seamlessly with moonlit leaves. A snake lies motionless among moss-covered rocks, relying on both patience and stillness to avoid detection. Even insects participate in this nightly struggle. Beetles and moths use erratic flight patterns, chemical deterrents, or nocturnal invisibility to avoid becoming a meal. The forest at night is alive with a tension that is invisible to the casual observer, but palpable to those who take the time to notice. This cycle of hunting and being hunted is not simply about survival. It is about energy, efficiency, and the perpetuation of life. Predators cull the weak or sick, ensuring that prey populations remain healthy and balanced. Prey species, through avoidance and adaptation, challenge predators to refine their hunting strategies, creating an ongoing feedback loop of evolution. Each night, each encounter contributes to this delicate equilibrium. Without predators, prey would overpopulate and exhaust resources. Without prey, predators would starve. The forest is a theater of interdependence, a complex web in which every species plays a vital role. The timing of activity is equally critical. Many predators are crepuscular or nocturnal, taking advantage of low light to conceal their movements. Their prey, often less mobile at night, must rely on heightened senses or instinctive behaviors to survive. This synchronization of activity creates peaks of tension, moments when the forest is alive with movement and sound, followed by stretches of eerie silence, where every leaf and twig seems loaded with unseen potential. For humans observing the forest at night, this rhythm is both mesmerizing and disorienting. The shifts between action and stillness make the environment feel alive, almost sentient. Encounters between predator and prey can be instantaneous and violent, or drawn out and suspenseful. A lynx may spend minutes stalking a deer through dense undergrowth, each movement calculated, each pause a test of patience and endurance. A rabbit senses the presence of danger, freezing or zigzagging to throw off the predator's calculations. Sometimes the attack fails, and both survive the encounter, ready to repeat the cycle the following night. These moments, while commonplace in the forest, are extraordinary for human observers, providing a glimpse into a reality where life and death hinge on timing, awareness, and instinct. The forest's nocturnal hunters and their prey also interact with other elements of the ecosystem. Predators disperse seeds, control insect populations, and shape the behavior of other animals. Prey species contribute to soil health, plant propagation, and nutrient cycling. The forest at night is a dynamic environment where every action, every interaction has cascading effects. The hunter and the hunted are both participants and regulators, maintaining the balance of the forest in ways that are subtle but profound. Observing this balance, one gains insight not just into the lives of animals, but into the intricate interdependence that defines all ecosystems. Humans, too, are part of this cycle in indirect ways. The presence of lights, trails, or hunting activity can influence predator and prey behavior, sometimes causing shifts in hunting grounds, movement patterns, or population distribution. Yet even with human interference, the forest persists. The nocturnal rhythms of the hunter and the hunted adapt, proving the resilience of this ecosystem. For anyone venturing into the forest at night, understanding this dynamic fosters respect, caution, and a deeper appreciation for the hidden lives that continue in the shadows. Ultimately, the hunter and the hunted at night are a living lesson in patience, observation, and adaptation. Each movement is purposeful, each decision a matter of life or death. Silence, shadow, and sensation dominate the forest, shaping behaviors and interactions. The interplay of light and dark, predator and prey, sets the tone for an environment where survival is never guaranteed, yet life persists in remarkable complexity. For those who take the time to witness it, the forest's nocturnal world is both terrifying and beautiful, a constant reminder that life thrives even in the quietest, darkest corners of the earth. The lessons of the hunter and the hunted extend beyond the forest floor. Observers are reminded of the delicate balance that sustains life, the consequences of every action, and the intricate connections between all creatures. The forest teaches humility, patience, and awareness. It demonstrates that survival is not about dominance alone, but about understanding, adaptation, and respect for the environment and its rules. The nocturnal struggles of predator and prey are the unseen engine of the forest, a system of checks and balances that has persisted for millennia, unnoticed by most, yet fundamental to life itself. Between midnight and dawn, the forest enters a period unlike any other, a time when darkness deepens and the world feels suspended in a state of quiet eternity. This is the forest's most mysterious hour, the time when every leaf, branch, and creature is cloaked in shadow, and the senses must work harder to detect movement, sound, or scent. The moon, if present, casts long diffused beams through the canopy, illuminating patterns on the forest floor that shift with the slightest gust of wind. Shapes that seemed solid during daylight now waver and dance, creating illusions that the mind struggles to interpret. Even seasoned observers often pause, aware that at this hour perception becomes unreliable, yet fascination grows in equal measure. The silence in these hours is profound, yet not absolute. It is a quiet punctuated by tiny, almost imperceptible sounds. The rustle of leaves as a squirrel moves along a branch, the soft drip of water from damp foliage, the occasional distant call of an owl marking its territory. Each noise is amplified in the stillness, every echo carrying farther than it would in the busy daylight. The mind instinctively listens, tracking patterns, attempting to predict where the next sound will come from. Awareness becomes heightened. The forest feels alive in ways invisible to casual observers. Every step taken by humans, every rustle of the underbrush, Every sudden shift in the wind becomes a potential story, a potential threat, or a potential discovery. Nocturnal creatures dominate the forest in these hours. Predators such as foxes, bobcats, and wolves move silently, their senses attuned to vibrations in the ground, scents carried by shifting air, and subtle movements of prey animals. Even when unseen, their presence is palpable. The occasional crack of a twig, the low rustle in the undergrowth, or the flash of reflective eyes signals that the forest is far from empty. Prey animals, in turn, have adapted remarkable strategies to survive this deep, dark time. Many small mammals remain completely still, relying on camouflage and instinct to avoid detection. Birds that do not roost safely in the canopy must remain motionless, their bodies blending with shadows. Insects, active and plentiful, provide both sustenance for predators and a subtle background soundtrack of buzzing, chirping, and fluttering wings. The air during these hours carries a weight that is almost tangible. Moisture condenses on every surface, making leaves glisten in moonlight or the faint glow of stars. Earth and decaying plant matter exude rich, organic scents, mingling with the fragrance of damp moss and flowering plants that bloom at night. Every inhale is filled with layers of life, a constant reminder that even in stillness, the forest is dynamic. The chill of night penetrates deeper than the first evening hours, seeping into bones and slowing movement, compelling creatures to conserve energy while still maintaining vigilance. Even humans venturing through the forest feel the weight of the cold, the wet, and the eerie quiet, a sensation that sharpens awareness and simultaneously humbles the senses. Time itself seems to stretch during these hours. Without the guiding presence of sunlight, minutes and hours lose their usual markers. A single rustle in the leaves, a distant hoot, or the shift of wind across the trees can feel like it lasts far longer than it does, creating a perception of timelessness. The mind begins to fill silence with imagined forms, half-glimpsed shapes that may or may not exist. This is a forest in its purest, most enigmatic state, a world where reality and perception intermingle, where the unseen is as vital as the visible, and where every living creature is engaged in the subtle negotiations of existence. The hunter and the hunted continue their routines, unseen yet omnipresent, reminding any observer that life persists in intricate ways even when hidden from sight. At this deepest hour, rivers, streams, and small ponds take on a different character. The still water reflects faint starlight or a waning moon, creating patches of silver and black that seem to shift with every ripple. Aquatic creatures, many unseen by day, move with fluid precision. Frogs and toads croak softly, insects skim the surface, and nocturnal fish become active, hunting or foraging in silence. Even the smallest of movements creates tiny ripples, alerting predators and prey alike, reinforcing the constant dialogue of awareness and reaction that defines this nocturnal ecosystem. For a human observer standing near the water, the interplay of light, sound, and movement creates a sense of being on the threshold of two worlds, one known and familiar, the other ancient, secret, and alive. Trees and vegetation take on personalities in this half-light. The wind moves branches in patterns that suggest motion of larger animals, and leaves rustle like whispers, passing unseen through the underbrush. Every tree becomes a potential home, a hunting perch, or a hiding place. Even the tallest canopy trees, often impervious to casual observation during the day, now appear animate. Owls perch quietly, watching, listening, while the occasional flit of a nocturnal bird or bat adds movement to the scene. Insects hum, wings brushing against each other, while spiders navigate their silk bridges under the faint light. The forest is alive in a subtle, pervasive way, the deeper hours making everything seem closer, more intimate, and yet more mysterious. One of the most profound aspects of these hours is the sense of continuity. The forest does not sleep. Life persists, uninterrupted by human notions of rest. Predators hunt, prey evades, insects multiply, and water moves, all as part of an unbroken chain that has continued for millennia. Observers who stand still low enough can begin to notice patterns, the rhythm of hunting and feeding, the subtle movements of wings and fur, the pauses that allow safety and stealth. There is a meditative quality to this awareness, a sense of connection to a world that operates on rules, both ancient and precise. The forest at its deepest hours is both alien and familiar, frightening yet comforting, and endlessly captivating. While danger is omnipresent, it is also largely invisible. A deer may move through the undergrowth without being seen, yet its presence can be felt in the slight bending of grass or the rustle of leaves. A fox may circle, unseen, its movement calculated, yet its essence is known in the tension that pervades the still air. Even humans, mindful and quiet, are part of this dialogue. Every step must be measured, every sound considered, for the forest responds to intrusion with subtlety rather than spectacle. Silence is both safety and vulnerability. The forest rewards those who respect it and punishes those who do not. The deepest hours are a test of perception, patience, and humility, revealing the forest not as a passive backdrop, but as an active, sentient entity. This period also reveals the forest's layered interactions. Predators do not act in isolation, nor do prey. The presence of one species can influence the movements of another, creating complex chains of cause and effect. A hunting owl may drive rodents into dense undergrowth, altering their patterns and in turn affecting snakes, foxes, and other predators. Each action, each reaction, contributes to a living tapestry that is constantly shifting. For the human observer, understanding even a fraction of this interplay is both challenging and awe-inspiring, offering a glimpse into the intricacy of ecological systems, often hidden in daylight. As midnight stretches toward dawn, subtle changes begin. The temperature may drop slightly more, moisture condenses further, and certain nocturnal species begin to prepare for rest, while others reach the height of activity. The forest seems to exhale, a slow rhythm that marks the transition toward morning without the suddenness of sunrise. Observers notice a shift in sound. The chorus of insects may soften, the occasional distant hoot of an owl becomes rarer, and subtle movements of small mammals indicate a gradual winding down of the deepest nocturnal energy. Yet even in these moments, the forest never truly sleeps. Beneath layers of leaf litter, inside hollow trees, and within the soil, life continues in ways that are imperceptible to human senses, but essential to the ecosystem. Being present in the deepest hours evokes a mix of awe, reverence, and a profound sense of humility. The forest is alive, mysterious, and self-sustaining, operating according to rhythms and rules that have persisted for eons. Observers are reminded that life is both fragile and resilient, that the interactions between predator and prey, between nocturnal and diurnal species, are governed by necessity, instinct, and adaptation. The forest in these hours teaches patience, awareness, and respect. It is a world where survival is measured in quiet moments, subtle choices, and careful observation. The deeper one immerses oneself in this environment, the more one understands that the nocturnal forest is not just a backdrop for life, it is life itself, intricate, enduring, and endlessly fascinating. As the first hints of dawn approach, the deepest hours begin to fade, but their impact lingers. The forest slowly transitions, shadows retreat, and creatures that were once hidden become visible. Yet even as light returns, the memories of the nocturnal world, its silence, its tension, its subtle movements remain vivid. Those who have witnessed these hours carry with them a deeper understanding of the hidden life of the forest, an appreciation for its mysteries, and a respect for the delicate balance that governs every moment of survival, unseen and uncelebrated. The deepest hours are an invitation to witness, reflect, and marvel, a reminder that even in darkness, life thrives in complexity, connection, and quiet persistence. As the forest emerges from the deepest hours of night, the first hints of morning appear with a gentle, almost imperceptible change in light. The darkness begins to soften, a subtle gradient forming between the black shadows of midnight and the pale gray of pre-dawn. The air itself seems to shift, cooler and heavier now with the remnants of night, carrying faint scents of dew, earth, and the damp foliage that has accumulated over countless hours. A faint mist rises from the forest floor, curling around tree trunks, and roots clinging to leaves and drifting through the underbrush as if reluctant to leave the mysteries of the night behind. Every sound, every movement is heightened by the stillness, and the forest seems to hold its breath, aware that a new day is about to unfold. In these first moments, light behaves differently. It filters through the canopy in slivers, illuminating particles of dust, droplets of moisture, and the delicate threads of spider silk that stretch between branches. The mist glows faintly, creating a dreamlike landscape that feels suspended between two worlds, the retreating night and the approaching day. Shapes that were once distorted by shadows gain definition. Every leaf, branch, and moss-covered stone becomes discernible, yet retains a softness, a muted quality that encourages careful observation. For those watching closely, the subtle changes reveal the movements of animals preparing for the day. A bird stretches its wings in the faint glow. A squirrel scuttles along a branch, and the first insects begin to stir, brushing through the damp undergrowth as they prepare for their morning foraging. The forest floor is transformed by the gentle encroachment of light. Dew clings to every surface, sparkling like tiny jewels and reflecting the slow ascent of the sun. Each blade of grass, each leaf, each fallen twig is accentuated by the low-angle light, creating an intricate tapestry of textures and tones. The mist softens the outlines of objects, giving them an ethereal quality, yet every sound is now sharper. The distant call of a bird, the rustle of leaves as a small mammal moves, or the gentle drip of water from saturated foliage. The forest breathes slowly, each exhalation carrying the faint scent of rain, soil, and decaying plant matter, merging into an olfactory symphony that signals the day's return. High above, the canopy begins to catch the first rays of sunlight. Emerald leaves glow softly, and the interwoven branches cast long, intricate shadows that shift with the rising light. The creatures of the upper layers awaken gradually, their movements precise and measured. Monkeys stretch and yawn, swinging from branch to branch, while birds chirp cautiously, testing the safety of the open sky after the night's predators. Insects begin their morning rituals, wings vibrating, mandibles scraping leaves, and antennae probing the environment. The emergent layer, once shrouded in darkness, is now bathed in golden light, revealing the scope and grandeur of the forest that was hidden through the night. Even the largest trees, previously only silhouettes against the night sky, reveal their textures, the gnarled bark, and the rich tones of moss and lichen covering their trunks. Rivers, streams, and small pools also respond to the coming light. The water catches the rising sun, reflecting soft glimmers that dance on the surface, transforming the familiar ripples into patterns of liquid gold and silver. Aquatic life begins to stir. Fish glide beneath the surface, insects skimming the water, and frogs slowly retreat from the open banks after their nocturnal activity. Mist rising from the water adds a layer of mystery to the early morning, softening edges and blending the line between river and forest. The gentle movement of water creates a constant, calming rhythm, reinforcing the forest's continuity and the cyclical nature of its life. Sound plays a crucial role in the morning's arrival. The stillness of midnight gives way to a symphony of awakening. Birds singing in cautious harmonies, insects buzzing in preparation for the day, and mammals rustling in the underbrush, seeking food or a vantage point. Each sound carries across the forest, interacting with echoes from distant hills, the low murmurs of flowing water, and the gentle creaking of branches. The forest is alive with noise, yet it is not chaotic. Each element has its place and timing, creating a layered composition that celebrates the transition from night to day. For an observer, the auditory tapestry is as captivating as the visual. The forest communicates its rhythms, its energy, and its hidden stories in every chirp, rustle, and splash. The creatures themselves respond to the changing light in subtle but fascinating ways. Nocturnal animals retreat to their shelters, hidden dens, or burrows, taking rest as the day's activity begins. Birds and diurnal mammals emerge cautiously, testing the light and the safety of their environment. Predators that dominated the night now descend to a slower pace, waiting for shadows to return before they become active again. The interplay between light, movement, and survival creates a delicate balance, one that has persisted through millennia and is observed anew with every sunrise. The forest, though familiar in structure, is always renewed in experience, revealing new interactions, unseen paths, and the enduring presence of life. Human senses are especially attuned during these hours. Walking through the misty forest at dawn, every sound seems amplified, every scent more vivid, and every motion more significant. Footsteps on the soft earth, the snap of a twig, or the brush of a hand against wet foliage is registered instantly, creating an intimate connection with the environment. Mist clings to clothing and skin, the chill of night lingering even as warmth begins to creep in. The interplay of light and shadow, of mist and moisture, heightens awareness, encouraging observers to notice details that might be overlooked at other times. The patterns of bark, the delicate veins of leaves, or the subtle iridescence of insects catching the sun. The forest at dawn is both gentle and demanding, offering beauty while requiring respect and mindfulness. The first light also illuminates the forest's textures in remarkable ways. Moss glows emerald on shaded trunks, the bark of old trees reveals its rugged patterns, and fallen leaves glimmer with tiny droplets of condensation. Colors are muted yet rich, with soft greens, browns, and golds blending together to create a harmonious landscape. The mist adds depth, blurring distant objects and creating layers that the eye must navigate carefully. Even familiar paths seem transformed, with the play of light and shadow suggesting movement and life in every corner. Observers often feel a sense of revelation at this hour, as if the forest itself is offering a quiet unveiling, inviting exploration, reflection, and wonder. As dawn progresses, the interplay between night and day becomes increasingly apparent. Shadows retreat, revealing clearings, hidden streams, and the intricate complexity of plant life. Animals that were hidden in darkness become visible, their patterns and colors revealed in the gentle illumination. Birds fly with renewed purpose, insects hum actively, and the forest vibrates with the energy of daytime activity. Yet traces of the night remain, dew on leaves, footprints of nocturnal creatures, and the faint lingering calls of owls or nightjars. The forest is a continuum, where the past hours of darkness merge seamlessly into the promise of the day, reminding observers that life is unbroken, resilient, and intricate. For anyone witnessing this transition, the coming of morning is both a visual and emotional experience. The shift in light, sound, and movement conveys a profound sense of renewal, hope, and the persistent beauty of the natural world. The forest, which seemed impenetrable in darkness, now reveals itself in layers, each detail a reminder of the complexity and interconnectedness of life. Observers are left with a heightened awareness of their place within this ecosystem, an appreciation for the subtleties of survival and adaptation, and a deep respect for the enduring rhythms of the natural world. By the time the sun fully rises, the forest has completed its transformation. Mist lifts, shadows shorten, and every creature settles into the routines dictated by daylight. Rivers sparkle, leaves shimmer, and birdsong fills the air with joyous harmonies. The mysteries of the night have retreated, yet their memory lingers in the quiet corners, in the tracks left behind, and in the faint echo of nocturnal activity. The forest of morning is a testament to resilience, life, and the seamless continuity of existence, a daily performance that invites anyone present to witness, absorb, and reflect. The coming of morning is both an ending and a beginning, a promise that the cycle of night and day, of activity and rest, continues unbroken, offering endless discoveries to those patient enough to observe. When the last shadow fades and the first beams of sunlight reach across the forest floor, the night finally loosens its hold. The chorus of insects falls silent. Owls retreat to their hidden perches, and the creatures of the dark withdraw into the safety of their dens, burrows, and nests. What felt like an endless world of mystery, sound, and hidden life begins to transform, returning to the daylight patterns we know more intimately. Yet the memory of the night lingers. The rustle of leaves, the call of unseen voices, and the glint of eyes watching from the undergrowth remind us that the forest holds a life beyond what is visible at noon. The night is not simply absence of light, but its own realm in ancient cycle, where silence and sound, fear and wonder coexist in delicate balance. Within it, predators move unseen, insects weave symphonies, rivers stir, and myths are born from what cannot be explained. It is here, in the hours between dusk and dawn, that the imagination thrives, filling the gaps left by what human eyes cannot pierce. To walk through a forest at night is to surrender to its rhythm, to be reminded that we are not rulers of the natural world, but guests moving quietly through its mysteries. As morning comes, it may seem that the night has ended, yet it has only folded itself away, waiting patiently for dusk to return. The forest at night is timeless, its cycles older than memory, its stories whispered in rustling branches and shifting shadows. Each dawn reminds us that the mysteries are still there, hidden beneath the daylight, waiting for the courage of those who step into darkness to listen, to watch, and to remember what lives beyond the reach of the sun.